Imagine waking up in a cramped, freezing room with no windows, just a hole where pigeons occasionally fly in. This was daily life in a Roman insula, where ceilings could collapse from something as simple as spilled olive oil. You'd start your day with stale bread and watered-down wine, then face streets filled with rats, sewage, and the constant threat of violence. How did ordinary Romans survive in this urban nightmare? Tonight, we'll walk through their grueling routine, from communal latrines to back-breaking labor, and uncover the resilience it took to live in ancient Rome's slums. So, before you get comfortable, maybe pull your blanket a little tighter. Take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your breath turns to fog in the air as you wake on a straw mattress thinner than your thumb. A sharp crack echoes through the building, just another ceiling beam settling, or maybe starting to give way. You remember the family 3 floors down screaming when their neighbours spilled olive oil rotted through the floor joists last week. Your room fits a bed and nothing else. The space between the walls would barely hold a modern refrigerator. Through the thin partitions, you hear 2 slaves arguing, a baby crying, a couple fucking. The stench of urine, sweat, and yesterday's fish sauce hangs like a curtain. Height means poverty here. The higher your floor, the cheaper the rent and the worse the construction. Landlords build 5, 6, 7 stories on foundations meant for 2. They pocket the extra rent while tenants pray the brick piers hold. No regulations, no inspections, just profit measured in lives. Morning light seeps through a hole punched in the wall for ventilation. Pigeons nest there, leaving droppings on your few possessions. You can't afford glass or even shutters to block the winter drafts. When it rains, water pools on the uneven floor. The insula groans like a living thing. Walls shift. Floors tilt. Woodworms chew through beams. Every creak could signal the start of a collapse. Fires spread block by block when cooking braziers tip over or lamps shatter. There are no alleys between buildings to slow the flames, no pipes bringing water upstairs. Rich Romans call these places islands, insulae, as if they're self-contained worlds. The joke isn't lost on you. Your building lacks its own latrine, let alone a kitchen. Water comes from the public fountain 4 streets away if you're willing to wait in line with the other plebs. Landlords disappear when roofs leak. They vanish when stairs crumble. But they materialize every first of the month, palms open for rent. Freedmen overseers knock at dawn, ready to drag non-payers into the street. Your home isn't a dwelling, it's a debt. Not to protect them from thieves, but so they don't vanish into the rubble if the ceiling drops. A tanner's knife, a porter's yoke, a weaver's shuttle. These are your lifelines. The woman across the hall birthed her baby in the stairwell last summer. The landlord fined her for staining the stairs. Down in the ground floor shop, the baker charges an extra sesterce for loaves baked without rat droppings. This is normal. This is home. Rome builds its glory on your back. While senators brag about aqueducts and temples, you live in a death trap held together by spit and hope. The city stinks of burning trash and ambition. Every meal tastes of desperation. And when your building finally collapses, as buildings do, the landlord will shrug, collect the insurance, and start stacking bricks again. The loaf on your knee could double as a weapon. You gnaw at the edge, feeling your back teeth grind against grains milled with pulverized stone. The baker up the street cuts costs by using the cheapest spelt unbolted flour that leaves tiny shards of chaff between your gums. Yesterday's baking, today's regret, no knife, no plate. Just calloused fingers tearing off chunks that pull like wet mortar. The wine in your clay cup looks like watered down blood, Roman custom dilutes it, 2 parts water to 1 wine before sunrise. Not for temperance, but because vomiting before noon gets you fired. The sour tang coats your tongue without warming your belly. If the gods smile, you might have 3 wrinkled olives pulled from the bottom of a neighbour's discard jar. The salt stings cracks in your lips. Once in a blue moon, someone shares mould-speckled cheese hard enough to chip a tooth. No honey. No fruit. Certainly no eggs. Those go to the ground floor shopkeepers who can afford to bribe the market guards for first pickings. They call this gentaculum, the morning lightness. You call it a cruel joke. The bread expands in your stomach like a sponge, giving the illusion of fullness, until the second hour of work when your hands start shaking. Hunger lives with you like a second shadow. You learn to ignore the cramp below your ribs the way you ignore the stench of the stairwell. Speed matters. Every minute dawdling over breakfast means 1 less copper in your pay pouch. The foreman docks wages for late arrivals, and the line at the fountain grows longer after dawn. You swallow the last rock-hard crust just as the sun clears the rooftops. No time to savour anything. Upstairs, a wealthy merchant's slave platters dishes. The smell of fresh-baked panis candidus, white flour loaves still steaming from the oven, drifts through the floorboards. You tighten your belt instead. Breakfast isn't a meal here, it's a calculation. Spend 2 asses on decent bread today, or save the coins toward next month's rent. Risk dysentery, drinking from the public fountain, or choke down the stale dregs in your jug. The baker near the baths sells softer loaves, but the walk costs precious minutes. Every choice is a trade between dignity and survival. Down in the street, a group of apprentice smiths pass around a shared loaf, each taking 1 polite bite before handing it on. You've seen dock workers dunk rock-hard bread in vinegar to soften it, old men soaking their bread in the wine of their morning libations. There are tricks to making starvation taste like sustenance. The amphora by your bed holds 3 more days' worth of grain. It weevils moving in the flour. Soon you'll have to decide whether to pick them out or pretend they're extra protein. For now, you rub your aching jaw and check the sun's position. Time to go. They'll write poems about Rome's banquets, the stuffed dormice, the flamingo tongues, the wines aged 20 years in smoked oak. No one will write verses about your breakfast. No mosaics will commemorate the way you cradle a heel of bread like a treasure. But this is what fuels an empire. Not the occasional feast, but millions of empty bellies ignoring their ache as they march to work. A crust sticks in your throat as you step into the hallway. You cough twice, hard. It either goes down or stays stuck, no time to care. Downstairs, the fish sauce maker's son already left for the docks. The woolcomber's widow is heating her thin gruel over coals. Another day begins. Hunger will wait. The city won't. The stench hits first rotting garbage, human waste, and cheap fish sauce fermenting in the sun. You step over the threshold and the city swallows you whole. A donkey brays somewhere, the sound cutting through the din like a rusty saw. No sidewalks here. You press against a wall as a wine cart rumbles past, its oxen straining against the yoke. The wheels splash through a rivulet of sewage, spraying your tunic with brown flecks. No apology. The driver whips his beasts faster. Time is coin. You wipe your face with a grimy sleeve and keep moving. Every step demands vigilance. Pickpockets work in teams. One bumps your shoulder while another slices your purse strings. A child darts by clutching a half-eaten sausage, pursued by a cook wielding a cleaver. Across the way, 2 men argue over dice. One reaches for his knife. Without street signs or house numbers, you navigate by landmarks. The cobbler with the blue awning. The defaced statue of Mercury missing his nose. Miss one familiar shopfront, and you're lost in a maze of identical stucco walls. Temples help. Mars Altor's gilded roof gleams from 3 blocks away, but alleyways twist unpredictably. The law forbids heavy carts during daylight hours, but enforcement is spotty. A porter staggers under a cedar beam, veins bulging in his neck as onlookers jeer at his wobbling knees. Someone's always hauling something too heavy: marble slabs, amphorae of oil, sacks of grain that leak precious kernels onto the stones. Public fountains offer the only clean water, but the lines stretch long by mid-morning. Women jostle for position, jars balanced on hips. A fight breaks out when someone cuts the queue. A vigile's night watchman lounges nearby, picking his teeth with a sliver of bone. He won't intervene unless blood flows. Merchants hawk dubious wares. A teeth puller displays his trophies on a string, blackened molars that may or may not have come from mouths. A soothsayer peels apart the guts of a pigeon, charging 2 coppers to predict your fortune in entrails. You avoid eye contact with the Syrian perfume seller. His vials of Egyptian oils reek of rancid fat and cinnamon. Guard your sandals. The streets run slick with kitchen slops tossed from upper windows. Straw scattered near taverns barely masks the vomit. Stray dogs nose through offal piles, their ribs pressing against mangy hides. One snaps at your ankle as you pass. Crossroads shrines beckon with wilted flowers and cheap lamps. You toss in a copper insurance against today's disasters. Further on, a scribe stall offers letter-writing services. Behind him, a Corinthian banker's slave scrutinizes passers-by, hunting for debtors skipping payments. Noise builds like a storm. Hammering from the metalworkers' quarter, children shrieking as they chase a rat, a bard butchering Greek love poems for tossed coins. Your ears ring by the time you reach the cloth market. The dyers' stalls reek of boiled urine and murex shells, their hands stained imperial purple from the precious dye. Here, the crowd thickens dangerously. A crush of bodies presses toward an auction block, where a dealer displays Gaulish slaves. Their shackles glitter in the sun. You duck down an alley only to find it choked with rubble from a recent collapse. Backtracking costs precious minutes. Every errand becomes an obstacle course. Need lamp oil? Hunting for a cheap tunic? Dodge the fuller's alley, where ammonia fumes bleach the air. Even simple tasks demand strategy. Buy early before prices rise. Avoid certain districts after noon when gangs form. Watch for loose masonry plummeting from neglected buildings. This is Rome's great paradox, the most advanced city on earth, where you still wade through filth to survive. The marble forums and law courts stand gleaming in one district, while you dodge puddles of something unidentifiable in another. Senators draft policies about sewage management 20 feet above your head, their terraces perfumed with rose petals while your lungs burn with charcoal smoke. A shout echoes down the street. A window shutter crashes to the stones behind you, missing your shoulder by inches. No one looks up. No one stops. The city moves on, relentless, taking no notice of near misses or minor tragedies. You adjust your grip on your measly purchases and keep walking. Watch your step. The next hazard's already coming. The first assault comes from the smell ammonia sharpness mixed with sour decay. You enter Rome's public latrine through a curtain barely thicker than papyrus. Inside, 20 men perch shoulder to shoulder on a marble bench full of keyhole-shaped openings. Your knees bump the stranger to your left as you squeeze onto the end. No partitions. No privacy. Just a row of bare thighs and lowered heads. Beneath the bench, a shallow channel of running water carries away waste, theoretically. The sluggish current leaves streaks behind. The man 2 seats over makes casual eye contact as he does his business, like you're sharing a tavern bench rather than performing intimate acts. Conversations continue uninterrupted around you. Hooked on the wall hangs the terror of this place, the Tessorium. A sea sponge fastened to a wooden stick, its fibres matted with remnants. This communal cleaning tool soaks in a jar of diluted vinegar between uses. When your turn comes, you'll scrape yourself with a sponge that's touched 100 strangers' backsides today. Tomorrow's dysentery scratches at your door already. Rome's sewer system is legendary, but here in the latrine, the engineering falters. The waste channel narrows around a bend, creating a dam of feces that bobs gently in the murk. Flies swarm the overflow. A slave boy occasionally pokes the blockage with a pole, sending swirls of brown froth downstream. You watch a rat climb from the trench and vanish into a crack in the wall. No locks on the doors. No warning before attendants stroll in to collect urine for Fuller's shops, where they'll use it to bleach togas. They'll pay good money for your piss, just not to you. Some men bring small clay pots to catch their own, but the practice earns sneers. Worst are the multi-seaters near the baths, where patrons drop their towels to chat with neighbours. Senators hold meetings mid-evacuation. Bargains get struck over grunts. One reluctant slave scrubs the seat between users with a sour-smelling rag, spreading germs rather than removing them. The stone under your thighs holds centuries of absorbed heat from countless bare buttocks before yours. Public urination carries steep fines, unless you're rich enough to bribe the aediles. The streets reek of those who gamble and lose. For women, options dwindle further. Some pay a copper to use chamber pots in backroom stalls where the attendant leers. Others carry piss pots. They empty hastily into alleyway gutters, hoping not to get caught. Disease thrives in this intimacy. One feverish man wipes his brow before grabbing the tussorium. Another's sandals squelch through mysterious puddles. The latrine echoes with wet coughs that might signal consumption. You'll know in 3 days whether today's visit gave you parasites or simply shame. Oddly, it's not the filth that lingers in memory. It's the forced camaraderie. Businessmen discuss loans while straining. Lawyers trade gossip mid-movement. No one acknowledges the absurdity. You become numb to the sounds, the smells, the way your thigh sticks to warm marble. Dignity is currency you stopped carrying long ago. Strangers' knees press against yours. Their exhalations blow across your neck. Someone's fart carries the distinct aroma of yesterday's garum sauce. You stare at the graffiti carved into the opposite wall. A crude phallus, a scrawled debt reminder. Someone's declaration of love for Marcus. The letters waver in your teary eyes from the ammonia fumes. A slave enters with a bucket of scummy water to sluice down the bench. Sprays hit your ankles. The runoff swirls toward the clogged channel in lazy spirals. By sundown, this place will be worse. By midnight, the floor will be slick with overflow. But for now, it's just men going about their business together, always together, in Rome's least private public space. As you leave, a newcomer takes your still warm spot. The cycle continues. Outside, you rub your hands with sand from the gutter, the closest you'll get to cleansing. Hunger reminds you that the same hands will tear your bread tonight. City life means choosing which discomforts to notice. They built aqueducts to bring fresh water across mountains but couldn't engineer basic dignity. The empire runs on these contradictions. Tomorrow you'll be back. The insula has no chamber pots worth using. Next time you'll hold your breath longer. Next time you'll bring your own sponge. Next time will be no different. Rome demands your labour, your taxes, and now this. Your resigned participation in collective indignity. Your shoulders scream before noon. Each jar weighs as much as a small child. Your sandals slide on sweat-slick stones. The merchant trailing behind snaps his fingers. Faster, always faster. Around you, Rome's labour grinds on. Bricklayers mortar walls with hands raw from lime burns. A potter's wheel squeaks as his foot pedal drives the spindle, day after day wearing his joints to bone. Down in the Cloaca Maxima, sewer cleaners wade thigh-deep in waste, their reed torches sputtering in the methane-thick air. No one asks if they can swim. Arrive late just once, and the overseer docks half your pay. Show up twice with dawn still colouring the sky, and he'll have his boys hold you down while he breaks a finger. The wealthy lecture about virtues of hard work from their shaded gardens. You taste blood in your mouth where a tooth loosened from last week's punishment. Women labour double. The fish sauce vendor, balancing her basket on one hip and a sick baby on the other. The dyer's daughters stirring vats of urine and crushed mollusks, their arms stained purple to the elbow. No one mentions their blistered hands at dinner parties where senators' wives wear the finished fabric. Tools conspire against you. The mason's chisel chips mid-strike, sending rock shards into his eye. The tanner's knife slips on damp hide, opening a gash that'll fester by sundown. Dock workers' hands become claws from hauling wet ropes. Every tradesman hides some chronic injury, a limp from dropped marble, a cough from grain dust, burn scars from the blacksmith's forge. Treatment costs more than a day's wage. Some will underbid your labour just for scraps. The grain dole feeds citizens, but you're a migrant from some backwater province, or maybe a freedman's son. No safety net for you. The baker's assistant got his job by finding the last baker floating in the Tiber. No one asks why the body had weights tied to its ankles. Jobs flow through patronage like sewage through the drains. Get caught spitting near a senator's client and suddenly no one will hire you. Forget to salute the right official's cousin and the docks turn mysteriously full when you arrive. The foreman's nephew always gets the light loads. The councilman's mistress's brother never works in the rain. Your neighbour disappeared after failing to applaud his patron's terrible poetry at the Salutio. They tell beggars to starve with honour rather than take handouts. This from men who inherited estates. The phrase follows you on days when even rock-hard panis rusticus costs too much. Better to starve quietly than face the bread dole's jeers. Better to chew leather straps than listen to philosophers lecture about the dignity of poverty between courses at their feasts. Noise surrounds you, hammers on nails, saws on wood. The hiss of red-hot metal dunked in water. The brickmaker's cough. The rope-maker's calloused hands rubbing together like crickets. Your own ragged breath as another amphora gets hoisted onto the warehouse shelf. The merchant pays in worn coins, shorting your count by 2. Protest means losing tomorrow's work. You pocket them silently, shadows lengthen. The metalworker's hands tremble from lead poisoning. The fuller's lungs bleed from ammonia fumes. Your shoulders bruise in perfect yoke-shaped patterns. Across the street, a one-armed veteran sweeps steps for crusts of bread. Further on, a chain gang of slaves digs a new sewer line. Their overseer yawns as his whip cracks. You rub your stiff neck and count the coins again. Not enough for rent, not enough for decent food. The foreman mutters about needing fewer workers tomorrow. Around you, others do the same, backs bent but never broken, bodies worn but never wasted. Rome stands on these aching shoulders. The aqueducts don't build themselves. The wheat doesn't carry itself from Egypt. Tonight you'll sleep like the dead, and tomorrow you'll rise like a slave. The work continues. The city demands it. The sun hasn't risen when you join the queue outside your patron's house. The doorman eyes your sunburnt neck and worn tunic before waving you into the atrium. Inside smells of citrus polish and crushed mint. Fountains murmur over the shuffle of weary feet. Your patron sleeps upstairs or pretends to. The ritual demands you arrive early, your hunger proving devotion. You don't sit. The marble benches remain empty despite tired legs. Standing shows respect. A slave circulates with watered wine in cheap cups. You sip slowly, knowing the toilets won't be available for hours. The wine tastes like vinegar, but costs a day's wage if spilled on the mosaic floor. Names echo as the household notary calls clients forward. Senators' proxies go first, then magistrates, then wealthy merchants. Your turn comes as the sun climbs. You bow exactly as practiced. Back straight, eyes lowered, one knee slightly bent. Not too deep, servile, nor too shallow, insolent. The patron lounges on his ivory chair, picking grapes while scanning your face for signs of ambition or weakness. Some days he tosses a purse with 5 denarii, enough to cover a week's rent at the insula. Today he nods toward his steward instead. "Tell Lucius about that leak in the warehouse," he says, already looking past you. "It's not a gift, but a loan. The work will pay half a fair wage, and next month you'll owe him gratitude again." A clerk records your name on a wax tablet thick with centuries of similar debts. Behind you, a fish merchant grovels too eagerly. The patron's lip curls as he flicks a silver coin into the fountain. The man splashes in after it, earning snickers. A widow prostrates herself for help evicting squatters. The air thickens with desperation and unwashed bodies. You learn to read moods. When the patron's son lost money at dice yesterday, 3 clients got beaten for breathing too loud. Last month, he rewarded a poet's flattery with a slave girl. Today, a glass blower waits for 6 hours, only to be told his patron's moved to Baiae for the season. The rules change hourly. Complaints mean exclusion. Refusal means ruin. A baker who missed 3 salutios found his ovens mysteriously bricked up. A scribe who asked for fair payment got accused of theft. Your neighbour married his daughter to the patron's cook, not for love, but because the wedding gift included a lease on a ground floor shop. The rich call this system amicitia, friendship. You call it survival. Your patron's insignia on your shop sign means the guild won't harass you. His word to the aedile keeps your rent stable. In return, you applaud his speeches, vote as he dictates, and name your firstborn after him. The debt never clears. Power flows through these morning rituals. The patron needs bodies to fill the forum when he runs for office. He needs craftsmen to rebuild his villa after the fire. You're one strand in his web of influence, just as he's one thread in a senator's larger net. Break the strand, and the whole web shakes. 2 hours later, you're dismissed with a vague promise of warehouse work. Outside, women cluster around the servants' entrance, begging the cook for spoiled fruit. A line of slaves carries linen-wrapped gifts for the patron's wife, silks from Syria, perfumes from Arabia. You touch the amulet around your neck and head to your real job. The bread won't bake itself. The salutio pretends to be voluntary. Try skipping it. See how fast the landlord raises your rent. Watch contracts dry up. Notice how the vigiles suddenly check your fire safety too often. Rome runs on these unspoken threats. Every bowed head, every forced smile, every strategic marriage props up the illusion of mutual benefit. You'll return tomorrow, and the next day. Then your son will take your place, inheriting your debts like a birthright. The fountain still murmurs, the queue still forms. The wheel keeps turning. The wooden bowl warms your palms as you cradle it close. Inside, a beige sludge of spelt and lentils slowly congeals. Not quite porridge, not quite gruel, just starch boiled past the point of flavour. You tear off a hunk of yesterday's bread to scoop it up. No spoons here. The bread disintegrates halfway through the meal, forcing you to lick paste from your fingers like a starved dog. No tomatoes. They won't reach Europe for another 15 centuries. No pasta, despite what romantic paintings suggest. Just coarse grains soaked until they surrender, seasoned with nothing but the metallic tang of the boiling pot. If you're lucky, a wrinkled clove of garlic might float in the murk. If the gods laugh at you, it's just another bowl of wet cardboard. Meat's a fantasy most nights. When it appears, it's stringy bits of salted pork floating in the pulls like shipwreck survivors. Sometimes a spoonful of garum fermented fish guts gets stirred in for richness. The taste lingers for hours. Wealthier neighbours toss bones to their dogs. You scavenge the marrow cracks after they're discarded. Upstairs, someone's feast smells drift through the floorboards. Roast duck basted with honey. Apician stews swimming in expensive spices from the east. You count the scents as your stomach growls: saffron, cumin, peppercorns, each worth more than your weekly rent. The closest you'll get to those flavours is sniffing near the spice stalls at the market. Your cooking pot balances precariously over a shared brazier. No kitchen in the insula means meals are either boiled into submission or eaten raw. Chickpeas take forever to soften without proper heat. Lentils sometimes stay gritty even after hours of cooking. You learn to chew slowly, picking small stones from your teeth. Firewood costs almost as much as the food itself. Dessert, maybe one dried fig if the harvest was good. Sometimes a handful of wilted raisins pressed into a sticky lump. The rich nibble candied dates and pistachio-stuffed pastries while poets sing of Bacchus. You suck the pit of an olive until it's dry as chalk, pretending it's sweet. Across the city, banquet couches groan under elaborate tableaux. Dormice dipped in honey, sausages arranged like castle towers, live thrushes trapped in pastry cages. Your neighbour claims he once served at a feast where the meat courses spelled out the host's name. Your own feast consists of counting lentils to make tomorrow's portion seem larger. You eat in silence mostly. Not the contemplative silence of philosophers, but the quiet of exhaustion. The wool carder's family argues over crusts next door. The potter's children whimper from hunger pains downstairs. No one discusses recipes. No one compliments the cook. There's no cook. Just whoever drew the short straw to stir the pot that night. Drinking wine with dinner is a luxury you can't afford. Water comes from the fountain, tasting of the lead pipes it travelled through. Sometimes you float a sprig of thyme in it to pretend at flavour. The rich mix snow from mountain peaks into their Falernian wine. Your drink could double as mortar mix. Unnecessary, when you eat with your hands from a shared bowl. Napkins are for people who don't wipe their hands on their tunics. The occasional olive pit gets flicked into a corner. The truly fastidious might rinse their fingers in the same water used to wash the bowls. You stop noticing the grease stains on your tunic after a while. Special occasions mean scraping together coins for a scrap of cheese, or, if the stars align, a skinny chicken from the market. The bird will be all tendon and regret, needing hours of boiling to be edible. You'll hoard the broth like liquid gold, sipping it for days after. Birthdays mean a spoonful of honey stolen from the public bath's offerings. New Year's might bring a single salted anchovy to split between 3 people. The wealthy write manuals on digestion and humoral balance. Their physicians fret over food combinations. You eat what doesn't kill you. Diarrhea is just part of the seasoning. When a wealthy patron once lectured you about virtuous moderation at table, you counted the empty wine jugs behind him and said nothing. The bowl gets licked clean, then wiped with bread until no trace remains. Tomorrow's breakfast will be the same as today's dinner, if you're lucky. You set the empty vessel aside and lie down. Hunger gnaws quietly as you drift off. Somewhere across Rome, a senator belches contentedly over roasted peacock. The city feeds its hierarchies well. You got your portion. The pot goes unwashed. There's no point. You'll just fill it again tomorrow. The copper coin leaves your palm, granting entry to another world. Steam curls around the bathhouse doorway like a dying breath. Inside, marble floors slope toward drains clogged with hair and oil. Voices echo off the domed ceiling, shrill laughter from the hot room, grunts from the exercise yard. The wet slap of flesh on wet stone. The attendant confiscates your tunic before you pass the first archway. No towels. No modesty. Just 100 bodies in various states of exposure moving through the ritual. A senator's slave scrubs his master's back, while a one-eyed veteran picks at his toenails nearby. Children dart between legs, splashing in puddles. You keep your gaze lowered, staring invites trouble. The tepidarium first. Lukewarm water laps at your ankles as you wade into the shared pool. Lead pipes hidden behind decorative griffins feed the baths, their sweet poison leaching into every drop. You don't dwell on the headaches plaguing regular bathers. The water looks clear today, no visible clumps of hair or floating scum. Small mercies. Next, the scraping. A sinewy attendant beckons you onto the stone slab. His strigil glints in the lamplight as he scrapes sweat and grime from your skin. The curved metal leaves pink trails on your back. No soap, just olive oil worked into your pores, then raked away with the dirt. The man before you had open sores. The attendant wipes the blade on his apron and keeps working. Steam swallows you in the caldarium. Condensation drips from the ceiling onto bare shoulders. The air tastes metallic, thick with other people's breath, and the sulphur stink of heated minerals. Someone coughs violently in the corner. Consumption or just the damp, who can say? You count seconds until your lungs burn, then emerge gasping. Wealth parades itself openly here. A merchant's wife reclines on a private couch, while attendants massage her with rose-scented oils. A politician's retinue clears an entire section of the frigidarium for his exclusive use. You glimpse jars of Indian spices and Spanish saffron lined up beside their perfumed towels. Your own toiletries consist of a rag and whatever oil drips you can catch from the public dispensers. Disease threads through the luxury. Fungus creeps between toes on the damp floors. The occasional drowned rat floats unnoticed in the plunge pools until someone screams. You rinse your face quickly, trying not to think about the man upstream washing his groin with the same water. The baths offer democracy of filth. Senators share benches with beggars in the latrine. Patrons and clients sweat side by side in the sauna. But watch as the hierarchies reassert themselves. The rich bring their own silver strigils to avoid touching plebeian skin. Your cracked feet leave prints on the tiles where theirs never touch bare stone. Oddly, it's the cold plunge that feels most dangerous. Shock steals your breath as you sink into water chilled with winter snowmelt. Blood pounds in your ears. Muscles seize. For 3 heartbeats, you're cleaner than you've been in weeks. Then you climb out to find your tunic missing, stolen, or misplaced by someone who spotted its lack of patching. You leave damp and shivering, skin tingling from the scrape down. The bath attendant's final insult, a splash of rose water behind your ears. Now you smell like a whorehouse, but at least the lice are gone. For tonight. Tomorrow, the insula's grime will reclaim you. The water keeps flowing, the pipes keep poisoning, and Rome keeps insisting this is civilization. On the street, a vendor sells sausages to bathers. Flies swarm the meat. A well-dressed man tosses a coin without looking. You pick it up, weighing the risk of dysentery against another night hungry. The bathhouse looms behind you, its arches glowing like the mouth of Hades. You pocket the coin. The water won't get cleaner, you won't get richer. But at least tonight, you'll sleep knowing the fleas are drowned. The fever hits like a hammer at sunset. Your joints ache. Your skin burns. In the insula, a doctor arrives if you can pay his bag of tools glinting in the lamplight. He peers at your tongue, presses fingers to your wrist, then declares your humours unbalanced. Out comes the bronze lancet. The blade sinks into your forearm before you can protest. Dark blood wells into a clay bowl. You'll grow weaker, but theory demands more bleeding until the bad fluids exit. A slave holds your head as your vision tunnels. Farmers swear by dung poultices for wounds. The physician recommends crushed beetles for fever, mashed in wine. Wealthier patients get powdered pearl or gold leaf. Equally useless, but more expensive. Your neighbour claims a paste of spiderweb stops bleeding, so you press the sticky mess to your son's cut. It festers anyway. The local herb woman sells love potions and abortion drugs from the same stained pouch. You buy both hope and poison in equal measure. Pain has no remedy beyond endurance. Toothache? A string tied to the molar, the other end to a door slam. The wine they offer as anesthetic barely dulls the edge. A travelling surgeon lectures about Hippocratic ideals while his assistant holds patients down with knees on their chests. Temples offer the last resort. You limp to Asclepius' shrine, clutching an offering of dried figs. Priest interpreters usher you into the abaton, a dim hall stinking of sweat and incense. Here, you'll sleep atop animal skins, waiting for a healing dream. The god might appear as a snake slithering across your chest, his touch curing or killing. Around you, others moan through fever dreams. Dawn finds some improved, some dead, most unchanged. The priests claim all outcomes reveal divine will. Childbirth is a death lottery. Midwives pack the birth canal with goose fat and crushed roses, whispering spells. Complications mean hooks and knives, the mother's survival incidental. Newborns perish quietly, wrapped in soiled linens. Every woman knows someone who bled out on the birthing stool. Those who survive often find their wombs falling out years later. Old injuries never heal right. The dock worker next door walks crooked from a broken hip reset by amateurs. The weaver's hands curl into claws after a fever. You learn which aches mean bad weather coming, which cough portends a lungs collapse. Folk cures abound, pissing on burns, swallowing lice for jaundice, hanging amulets around a child's neck. Superstition and science blur where desperation lives. Plagues empty entire neighborhoods. When the sickness comes, the wealthy flee to country villas. You hunker down, smearing your doorposts with garlic and pitch. The dead pile up outside until the corpse collectors haul them away. No one mentions that the same carts carried both bodies and bread yesterday. Grief has its own medicine. Women keen at funerals until their voices crack. Men gamble away sorrow in taverns. Orphans learn to steal before they learn to mourn. You bury your dead quickly, without epitaphs, because gravediggers charge extra for delay. The next fever could be days away. Some survive. The scars tell stories. Puckered burns from a childhood accident. A tooth missing where infection won. Your body becomes a map of near misses and makeshift cures. The rich buy Greek physicians trained in Alexandria. You make do with vinegar wraps and stubbornness. Recovery looks like this, hobbling to work 3 days after a broken toe, it's wrong. Sucking broth through cracked lips because solid food won't pass. Watching your daughter's rash fade by sheer luck. Healing happens despite the treatments, not because of them. At the baths, old men compare their surgeons' butcheries over cups of Posca. Women trade miscarriage remedies in hushed tones. Everyone knows someone taken by spring fever or summer flux. You rub your aching knee and count yourself lucky. Tomorrow's illness already circles the neighborhood, waiting for weak lungs or open wounds. The city thrives. The wooden ticket burns your palm, not from heat, but from gripping it all morning. Free admission to the Colosseum, stamped with the emperor's face. 3 weeks' wages couldn't buy better seats than this government handout. The crowd's roar drowns out your landlord's threats, your backache, the baby sister who didn't wake up last week. Gladiators enter first. A Mamillo from Gaul with fresh whip scars on his back. A Retiarius trailing his net like a broken promise. The betting starts before the first sword clash. A rich senator's son behind you wagers a year's rent on the Germanic prisoner. You can't afford bets, just the hope the loser dies cleanly. The crowd chants for the killing blow. Morning games feature beasts. A starved bear lumbers into the arena, confused from months in darkness below. Convicts stumble after him, armed with wooden sticks. The bear rears up, gutting one man, while another trips in his chains. 15 minutes later, slaves drag chunks of meat through the Porta Libitonensis. Death's exit. No one asks what happened to the surviving prisoners. At noon, the executions begin. Christians first, the human torches. Finally, some pirate crew, crucified around the arena's edge so the crowd can watch them suffocate slowly. There, charioteers gamble libs for team colours, blues versus greens being the bloodiest rivalry. You once saw a driver get tangled in his reins, dragged until his skull cracked open like a melon. The races have rules, unlike the arena, but the crashes satisfy that same primal itch. Street theatre kills time between spectacles. Puppet shows mock politicians until secret police arrive. Acrobats build human pyramids on rickety platforms. A cynic philosopher stands naked in the plaza, screaming that gladiatorial games distract citizens from real issues. Two soldiers toss him in the Tiber before he finishes his speech. You learn the rhythms. Cheer too loud for the wrong fighter, and the patron behind you might take offence. Clap too soft for the emperor's birthday games, and the vigiles note your face. The state distributes bread before major events, stale loaves that keep bellies too full for revolt. Entertainment isn't leisure here, it's social control wearing a smile. After dusk, tavern dice games mimic the arena's violence. Fights break out over spilled wine. Someone always knows a bookie who'll take bets on tomorrow's executions. You nurse cheap posca and laugh too loud at jokes about crucified thieves. Somewhere beyond the torchlight, stoic teachers whisper that true men rise above bloodlust. Their students nod while picking blood from under their nails. The rich throw private dinner parties where poets recite odes to mercy between courses of stuffed peacock and flamingo tongue. You wake next morning with sand in your sandals from the arena floor. Your neighbour brags about catching a severed finger tossed into the stands. The cut on your knuckle stings. You don't remember how it got there. Outside your insula, workers scrub blood from the steps where a drunk fell last night. The games continue in 12 hours. The bread line forms at dawn. Rome perfected this alchemy, transforming rage into cheers, despair into pageantry. While emperors build temples to Pax, the peace goddess, the mob, learns to worship violence instead. Your hunger remains. Your landlord still expects rent. But for a few copper hours, you mattered, you judged, you survived. The wooden ticket stub stays tucked in your belt proof. You were there when history happened. Never mind that history was just another man dying in the sand. The rich say civilization requires bread and circuses. You know the truth. No one revolts on a full stomach while watching lions eat criminals. The greatest trick Rome ever pulled, making oppression feel like entertainment. Your morning walk to the fountain passes 7 shrines before the first intersection. A tiny niche for Vesta near the bakery, her eternal flame tended by dirty children. Mercury's grinning face carved above a butcher's stall. A crumbling altar to Cloacina, goddess of sewers, near the public latrine. You touch each in passing, not from piety, but because ignoring one might mean spoiled milk or a collapsed ceiling tomorrow. Religion here isn't about belief, it's bureaucratic. A baker offers spelt cakes to Fornax, oven goddess, before firing his loaves. A sailor paints eyes on his boat so Juno will see storms coming. You mumble prayers while washing clothes, not because you trust the nymphs to whiten your tunic, but because your neighbour heard of a man who skipped the ritual and developed weeping sores. State festivals paralyse the city 17 times a month. The Floralia means prostitutes dancing naked in the streets. The Saturnalia reverses social roles. Slaves order masters about for a day. Attendance isn't optional. Last year, a wool merchant refused to decorate his shop for Anna Perenna's festival. His stock mysteriously burned the next week. Emperor worship threads through everything. His image hangs in shops beside household gods. You mutter the required oath when buying bread. By the genius of Caesar, though you've never seen the man. Shrines to the imperial cult dot every neighbourhood, their priests collecting offerings that look suspiciously like taxes. A Greek philosopher once joked that gods cost less than emperors. They found him floating face down in the Tiber. Domestic religion feels like a second job. Your lararium shelf holds wax figurines of ancestors demanding daily honeycakes. The hearth fire must never die, though your insula lacks a proper hearth. You mimic the rich by keeping a clay lamp always burning, a poor man's perpetual flame. At bedtime, you whisper prayers to Somnus while smelling your neighbour's cooking smoke through the walls. Sleep comes easier when the gods feel paid. Foreign cults offer exotic comforts. Isis worshippers parade through the Subura, their linen robes absurdly clean. Mithraists meet in secret cellars, but everyone knows the ex-soldier down the street got his scar during initiation. Christian gatherings happen in graveyards. Cheap real estate, though you pretend not to notice when your laundress sneaks off to them. The state tolerates most imports, provided you still burn incense for Jupiter on Capitol Hill. Omens dictate daily life. A crow flying left means cancel your meeting. Spilled wine demands immediate propitiation. The haruspex reads sheep guts at the marketplace, his bloody hands pointing at political enemies. Last month, a lightning strike destroyed a patrician's house. The priests declared it punishment for adultery. Nobody mentions the patricians' unpaid loans to the Temple of Juno. Death brings complicated rituals. You wash your father's corpse with your own hands because hired libertinari charge extortionate rates. The necropolis outside town reeks of cheap pyres. Poor families bury infants under floor tiles, cheaper than a grave, though the smell lingers. Wealthy tombs line the roads, their epitaphs threatening curses on vandals. You wonder if the dead care. Your brother's ghost hasn't visited since you skimped on his death anniversary cakes. Private doubts stay private. The Epicurean lecturer at the baths argues gods don't meddle in human affairs. You nod along while discreetly rubbing the amulet under your tunic. Even skeptics hedge bets. A philosopher might deride augurs while still avoiding ladders after black cat sightings. Religious skepticism is a luxury for people whose roofs don't leak. Festivals meant to unify often highlight divisions. At the Lupercalia, patricians run naked through streets whipping women with goatskin thongs. During the Compitalia, your neighbourhood erects makeshift shrines at crossroads. The aediles grade them like school assignments, doling out penalties for shoddy craftsmanship. You spend days carving wooden figurines you can't afford, knowing the judging depends on whose patron has more pull. The gods are everywhere except where you need them. No deity prevents insular collapses. No prayers soften your landlord's heart. When your daughter burned with fever, the temple physician charged double because your family hadn't sacrificed recently. You paid in copper and bitterness. Some nights you whisper secrets to Luna instead of Jupiter. The moon doesn't demand offerings. She shines equally on palace and tenement. No priests control access to her light. Of course, tomorrow the Adar will demand you contribute silver for the new temple lunette. The gods may be immortal, but their middlemen always need paying. Religion here is ritual without solace, obligation without comfort. You keep the festivals, kiss the amulets, nod at the omens, not because you believe, but because disbelief is too expensive. The system thrives on this calculus. Fear is cheaper than faith, and compliance cheaper still. The incense burns, the coins clink, the city turns. Jupiter watches. Or doesn't. The bronze citizenship tablet in your home means something, just not what you hoped. As a citizen, you can't be crucified. That's the sole comfort when the vigils drag you in for questioning after a tavern brawl. The magistrate will hear your case before sentencing. Non-citizens already dangle from crosses outside town. Trial day dawns with all the gravity of market haggling. The forum buzzes with spectators placing bets. Your accuser, a wine merchant's nephew, adjusts his toga's purple stripe. His advocate's voice booms through the basilica. Your rented lawyer mumbles about mitigating circumstances while counting the coins in your purse. Justice wears price tags here. A broken nose rates compensation if the victim matters. The senator's slave crushed by a falling emperor. His owner gets 20 solidi. Your cousin crippled at the docks. The shipping agent pays 3 coppers. The law codes carve exceptions like roast meat senators, exempt from testifying against peers, soldiers exempt from local courts, patricians exempt from consequences. When the baker's Thracian servant stole bread, they whipped him bloody before the trial. Now iron fetters chew his ankles while the jury debates. No advocate speaks for him. If convicted, they'll brand his forehead, or send him to the mines, or sell him south, where quarry slaves last 6 months. Evidence means whatever bribes can buy. Witnesses suddenly remember events for a few denarii. Documents materialize with convenient wax seals. Your neighbour claims he saw you start the brawl, though he was pissing drunk at the time. His scribe records everything except the bag of silver passed under the table. Punishments serve dual purposes. Pain and pedagogy. Pedagogy sate from Marseille. The vigiles decorate busy intersections with crucified corpses as reminders. One gaudy execution prevents 100 crimes, unless you're rich enough to pay the substitution fee. Law enforcement doubles as extortion. The night watch expects gratuities to patrol your street. Refuse, and suddenly your insula becomes prime territory for arsonists. Those same vigils will investigate your fire for another fee. Their torches illuminate nothing but open palms. A fishmonger last year protested his flogging sentence. The judge upgraded it to the mines. Now his widow begs outside the baths, showing scars where they broke her husband's knees before shipping him out. Private justice fills the gaps. When your sister's betrothed vanished after insulting a tax collector, no court heard the case. The vigils chalked it up to drunk drowning. Your family knows better, but keeps quiet. Across the Tiber, entire neighbourhoods answer to gang tribunals where verdicts come at knife point. The state ignores them unless taxes stop flowing. Prisons are temporary holding pens for the doomed. The Tullianum's underground cells stink of despair and old executions. You'll await trial on the bare floor, pissing through cracks into the common cesspit. Wealthy detainees rent upper rooms with writing desks and hot meals. The jailer's price list hangs beside the code of laws. Oddly, the system works for certain definitions of work. The rich sleep easy behind walls patrolled by private guards. Merchants count profits from slave-run businesses. The state collects taxes from terrorized provinces. Stability demands that some suffer arbitrarily so, most fear suffering predictably. Your trial concludes with a fine you can't pay. The magistrate offers leniency if you sign over next month's earnings to his estate manager. He mentions the debtor's prison has spaces open. The stylus trembles in your hand. Outside, another crucifixion detail marches past the courthouse. The man in chains weeps openly, a citizen who couldn't prove it fast enough. You sign. Rome calls this justice. You call it survival. The tablet in your home won't feed your family, but it might keep you off a cross. Tomorrow you'll walk past the bodies rotting by the Appian Way and thank the gods for small mercies. And in this city, only the fortunate qualify as property worth protecting. The vigils nod as you pass their post now. They recognise the look of the bought-off. Your coins bought more than a reduced sentence. They bought entry into the unspoken ranks of those who understand how justice really functions, not through scrolls and speeches, but through silver-changing hands in shadowed alcoves. The scales balance where no one sees them. You touch your citizenship tablet absently. The metal feels colder than you remember. Somewhere a slave screams under the lash. Somewhere a senator's son rides unpunished after trampling a fruit seller's child. And you keep your head down and your bribes ready. Justice doesn't blindfold herself here. She just checks your purse before passing sentence. What little light remains comes from sporadic oil lamps in wealthy homes. Each flask of olive oil burning represents a day's wages. You navigate by touch and memory, fingertips brushing against rough walls as you climb the insular stairs. One wrong move could send you tumbling into darkness. Your room offers no respite. The flickering glow from a neighbour's cooking fire casts monstrous shadows on the ceiling. Without glass windows, the night air flows freely, carrying distant screams from the Sabura slums. Somewhere below, a shutter bangs relentlessly in the wind, or is someone trying to force a latch? You barricade the door with your bed frame. Last month, thieves slit a wool worker's throat, 2 flights down while his children slept beside him. Fire haunts every insular dweller's nightmares. A single unattended brazier could reduce the building to ashes by dawn. The smell of smoke sends your heart racing until you pinpoint its source. A tavern kitchen 3 streets over. Rome burns regularly. The rich rebuild in marble. You dig through rubble for salvageable nails. The night watch offers no protection. Underpaid vigils doze at their posts or chase down drunks for bribes. Their leather buckets sit empty beside dry cisterns. When a scream pierces the darkness near the baths, no lanterns move toward the sound. Investigation requires overtime pay. Crime becomes weather something to endure, like heat or rain. Sleep comes in fits. Every rustle could be rats or intruders. Near dawn, a gang of youths pounds on doors, laughing as they vanish into alleyways. You clutch a makeshift weapon, a rusted nail lashed to a stick, and whisper curses at the shrinking moon. In darkness, a senator's son looks no different than a beggar, unless his bodyguards announce him with torches. The wealthy travel in armed groups, their slaves carrying lanterns and cudgels. You walk alone, hugging walls, praying to gods you don't believe in. Strip away Rome's daylight grandeur, and the city reverts to predator and prey. Taverns become fortresses of light in the gloom. Their grimy windows glow like amber, promising safety in numbers for a price. Drink enough sour wine. Drink too little, and the innkeeper throws you into the street. Either way, dawn finds you poorer. The truly desperate gather under bridges, sharing stolen bread and rumours of night haunts. Darkness amplifies suffering. The old man next door coughs blood into his rags all night. A child wails incessantly from hunger or fever. Flies grow bold without sunlight, crawling over sleeping faces. You itch constantly. Bedbugs or nerves, it hardly matters. The night breeze carries moans from the brothel district, but whether from pleasure or pain, no one asks. Moonlight turns the city treacherous. Uneven cobblestones twist ankles. Open cesspits loom suddenly in the dark. A misplaced foot could land you in waist up to your knees. Construction sites become death traps. Pile drivers left mid-swing, pits uncovered, rusty nails protruding. Daylight makes hazards visible. Night makes them lethal. Wealth buys protection. Across town, patricians sleep behind doors of imported cedar, their slaves standing watch with knives. Your lock is a frayed rope tied in a complex knot. You've heard of thieves who blow sleep-inducing powders through cracks, of gangs who drop scorpions into rooms through ceiling holes. Rational or not, the stories keep you awake. Dawn brings shallow relief. The first light reveals broken pottery on the stairs, fresh bloodstains by the well. Your neighbour's teenage daughter is missing again. The baker's apprentice sports a new bruise blooming across his cheek. You rub grit from your eyes and count yourself lucky. Another night survived. Rome never truly sleeps, but the city holds its breath after dark. What passes for law recedes like the tide, leaving naked desperation in its wake. You learn to move silently, to distinguish drunk laughter from danger, to sleep with one ear pressed to the wall. Luxury is 8 uninterrupted hours. You haven't been luxurious in years. The night watch's horn sounds faintly from the river docks. Somewhere a drunk vomits in an alley. A stray dog howls at the waning moon. You turn your face toward the wall and wait for dawn. Time moves differently in darkness. Each creak stretches minutes into lifetimes. You don't sleep so much as ration consciousness, dipping in and out like a thief testing door latches. Morning comes eventually. The darkness retreats, though never completely. You'll carry it in the bags under your eyes, in the way you startle at sudden movements. Rome pretends civility when the sun shines. But you know the truth. Night strips the city bare, and what remains isn't pretty. The real miracle isn't the aqueducts or the roads. It's that anyone survives until sunrise at all. The bronze citizenship ring on your finger grants you exactly 3 privileges. You can't be tortured before trial. You can vote when anyone asks. And you might someday wear a toga's narrow stripe. That's the theory anyway. Reality plays out differently in Rome's social minefield, where each rung of the ladder is greased with olive oil and broken glass. Senators float above it all. Their palatial domus houses drip with Greek statues stolen during conquests. Their children inherit fortunes before they can walk. You see them sometimes at the baths, their fleshy bodies pink from scrubbing, complaining about plebeian body odour, while slaves pick grapes for them. The law limits how much purple they can wear. An early sumptuary law that does nothing to curb their gold-laced sandals or pearl-encrusted couches. Equestrians hover just below, jingling their 400,000 sesterces minimum net worth like invisible coins. They run the banks, the shipping firms. Now they cross the street to avoid your smell. Freedmen occupy the cruelest tier, almost citizens, but never quite. The fish sauce tycoon down the street wears gold rings but still can't hold office. The Greek tutoring patrician boys still get spat on in the forum. Mobility exists in theory, but the higher they climb, the harder established elites kick. Some compensate by building garish tombs louder than their lives. Others buy slave children to feel powerful for once. Slaves form the foundation, everything else rests upon. The law considers them talking tools. You pretend not to see the chain scars on the water carrier's ankles or the brand on the baker's arm. Their suffering oils the social machine. The mine slaves who die extracting Spanish silver. The household slaves sexually available to all. The gladiators bleeding for others' amusement. Your cousin married his daughter to a customs officer's nephew. The dowry beggared him, but now he gets first pick of Egyptian grain shipments. The cobbler downstairs adopted an adult Greek freedman just to gain access to his shipping contacts. Every alliance strains some moral fibre until it snaps. Marriage is warfare by other means. Your sister weds the vinegar dealer, not because she fancies his pockmarked face, but because his cousin knows an aedile who can erase your rent arrears. You've seen couples trade blows on their wedding night over disputed property clauses. The rules change while you sleep. Yesterday's acceptable linen tunic becomes today's shameless plebeian display after some senator's wife decrees it unfashionable. The street food you've sold for years gets banned near the baths because a praetor's son got food poisoning. One season Corinthian bronze is in, next season it's vulgar. Alexandrian kitsch, you can't win, only guess. Status symbols separate castes like moats. The number of dinner courses served, whether your funeral features professional mourners or just drunk cousins. Even names broadcast rank. Your Lucius sounds provincial next to a patrician's Appius. The scribe who misspelled your father's name on the census doomed your social prospects before you took your first step. Downward spirals happen fast. One failed loan repayment, and you're moving upstairs to smaller rooms. A drunken insult to the wrong official's clerk, and suddenly no one buys your baskets. The wool worker who used to supply patrician households now begs outside them after his eyesight failed. Rome has safety nets for people who matter. Survival demands constant calibration. You laugh at your patron's jokes but never first. You gift wine at Saturnalia but never better than what your superior drinks. You name your son after your landlord but not your firstborn. Every interaction is a balancing act. Appear too ambitious, and you're a threat, too servile, and you're worthless. The funeral processions where mourners are counted like military formations. Participate or perish. Oddly, the system thrives on its contradictions. Freedmen's sons become senators within generations. Slave tutors educate noble children. Barbarian generals command Roman legions. The empire absorbs talent, even as it despises change. You navigate this like a blind man in a maze, hands outstretched, hoping the next turn doesn't drop you into darkness. Some days you consider selling it for bread money, but without it, you're just another body in the crowd, nameless, faceless, disposable. So you wear the cheap metal proudly, knowing it's both your shackle and your shield. You'll climb or fall on its splintered rungs like millions before you. Your child sleeps curled at the foot of your bed like a second shadow. The space between walls barely fits your straw mattress, now stretched thinner to accommodate small limbs. At night you hear their teeth grinding from hunger pains. By day they vanish into Rome's bloodstream, their bare feet slapping against stones still slick with dawn's chamber pot dumps. Rats become pets until the landlord beats them dead. Broken pottery shards serve as dolls. An old sheep's knucklebone might bounce all afternoon if not snatched by older kids. The baker's son organised a chariot race last week. 3 boys dragging a broken door down the street until someone split their skull on a corner stone. Childhood games here mimic adult fates. Education is for patrician sons scribbling Greek verbs on wax tablets. Your children learn mathematics by counting your dwindling coins. They study rhetoric listening to drunken tavern disputes. The merchant down the street pays a retired scribe 2 coppers a week to teach his boy letters. A fool's investment when strong arms earn more than clever tongues. Your daughter traces shapes in spilled flour when no one watches. These secret lessons won't feed her later. Half your neighbours have missing children. The fever took one boy last summer. A collapsing wall crushed 2 sisters. The river claimed another during flood season. You don't name newborns until they survive a month less paperwork when they don't. Amulets dangle over cradles. Coral against the evil eye. Wolf teeth for strength. A scrap of parchment with garbled prayers. Superstition costs less than medicine. Girls ripen fast. By 12, your neighbour's daughter already barters her body for extra bread. First with the landlord's nephew, now with passing soldiers. At 14, she'll marry some widower needing free labour. You've seen brides younger than the tunics they're wed in. Their wedding nights involve more accounting than affection, as husbands inspect teeth and hips like livestock. Boys apprentice at the age rich children start philosophy lessons. The blacksmith next door takes on lads barely tall enough to pump bellows. They return each evening with burned scars and stories about masters who correct with hot pokers. Dock foremen prefer small bodies for squeezing between cargo, cheaper to replace than donkeys when crates crush them. Some parents sell sons outright to the lead mines. At least there, the boys get fed. Bodies grow crooked here. Scoliosis from hauling water buckets too young. Hunched shoulders from huddling against winter drafts. Bow legs from rickets softened by perpetual hunger. The potter's children have lungs blackened from kiln smoke. The tanner's brood's hands never stop peeling from alum and urine baths. You measure time by your son's outgrown tunics, each one patched thinner than the last. Birthdays pass unmarked except by debt collectors. No toys except what the streets provide. No sweets beyond the occasional bruised fig stolen from market stalls. The concept of childhood. As precious time is a luxury for marble villas, where tutors drone about virtue while hand-feeding pupils grapes, your children inherit survival skills instead. How to pocket unattended loaves, which alleys to avoid after dark, when to feign injury to skip a beating. They learn cruelty young. The butcher's son tortures stray cats with practiced ease. The wallcumber's daughter pinches rivals until they yield the best gutter scraps. You've seen 8-year-olds gamble with knuckle bones, their faces hardened like retired gladiators. The empire trains its citizens early, to take punches without crying, to swallow insults with meals, to understand their place begins at the bottom and stays there. Yet pockets of resistance exist. A retired legionary teaches boys to carve wooden swords despite the landlord's threats. Your daughter sneaks flowers from the bathhouse offerings to brighten your room for an hour before they wilt. These tiny rebellions matter. You watch your son mimic the way you count coins and curse under your breath. Your daughter practices your resigned sigh when the landlord knocks. They absorb everything, your exhaustion, your bitterness, your stubborn will to wake each morning. One day they'll leave this room. You pray they take something softer with them than what the insula teaches. Morning comes. Your daughter scrapes mould off yesterday's bread without being asked. Your son ties rope sandals with hands already calloused from odd jobs. Another day begins. The city grinds on. Childhood here isn't a time of life. It's a handicap to outgrow. Your breath hangs visible in the air just to prove how little warmth your walls hold. The mortar between bricks sweats icy droplets, leaving dark streaks that never dry. You sleep in every rag you own. Tunics layered like onion skins. A moth-eaten cloak serving as blanket. The chill finds gaps. It creeps through the hole where pigeons nest in summer, through cracks in the door frame, up through the floorboards from the empty shop below. No braziers here. Only the rich burn charcoal through winter nights without fearing asphyxiation. Some neighbours risk it anyway. You'll smell their corpses before the vigiles break down doors. Your family huddles like livestock, sharing body heat and fleas. The children burrow between adults, their small frames shivering against ribs. Someone's always coughing. Someone's always sniffling. Silence would be more alarming than the wheezing chorus. Dampness breeds misery. Wool garments never fully dry, clinging to skin with sickening clamminess. Straw mattresses grow brittle with mould. Your sandals disintegrate faster from constant contact with wet stones. The insula becomes a network of coughs, deep chest rattles from the tanner's family, dry hacks from the widow upstairs. Your own boy's wheeze that hasn't faded since Saturnalia. No one comments when specks of blood appear in phlegm. Food becomes scarcer than sunlight. The grain dole barely stretches through autumn. By midwinter you're soaking husks meant for livestock. Prices spike as snow blocks the Appian Way. A cabbage costs half a day's wages. Meat sellers push questionable cuts. Sinewy goat necks, suspiciously smooth bones lacking marrow. You boil shoe leather when coins run out. The baker's wife whispers about a backroom trade in cemetery offerings, bread untouched by ancestral ghosts. You pretend not to hear the sacrilege as you hand over coppers. Public baths offer temporary refuge. The entrance fee buys 2 hours of steam-choked warmth before attendants shove you out. You linger near hypercoarse grates until your tunic scorches, then rush home hoping to retain the heat. Some parents send children to loiter near bathhouse drains, catching runoff warmth from the rich patrons' pools. The attendants beat them back with sticks when noticed. Winter nights stretch unbearable lengths. No oil for lamps means darkness falls with the sun. You count hours by the changing cough patterns through walls. Cloud-covered skies erase moonlight. The few night walkers carry smoking tallow dips that reek of rendered fat. Once a week, the fuller's son leads blind neighbours to the latrine using a rope, everyone terrified of missing the ledge in blackness. Clothing never fits the need. The wall merchant sells felted rags as winter gear. Your daughter's toes turn grey with chilblains despite wrapping them in torn blankets. Men piss themselves rather than face the courtyard privy at midnight. Women bleed through layers of rags too frozen to wash properly. The stench of unwashed bodies and soiled bedding clings like a second skin. Odd trades flourish. A one-eyed cobbler patches sandals with fish-skin glue that holds until the first puddle. The Syrian water carrier hawks winter wine. Hot water with a splash of vinegar and a pine needle floating on top. Firewood sellers swear their damp logs are seasoned until flames sputter out. Every transaction carries unspoken desperation. Both of you know this charcoal won't last the night, but dignity demands pretending otherwise. Christmas doesn't exist yet. Saturnalia's week of feasts seems decades past. Only the calends of January offer brief respite. Neighbours exchange nominal gifts of figs or nuts. Landlords pretend benevolence for a day. You save a mouldy corner of cheese as your offering, watching your children's faces when they taste dairy for the first time in months. Survival requires small betrayals. The Walcomber's girl loses a spindle to feed the brazier. You forget to report a neighbour's stolen chicken. Everyone pretends not to see the landlord's nephew demanding winter comforts from desperate mothers. Morality softens when fingertips go numb. Dawns bring no relief, only greyer light on frost-rimed walls. You chip ice from the water jug with chattering teeth. The children wake crying from hunger and cold. Another day begins. Spring seems mythical, like something poets invented. Yet somehow, through layered rags and shared body heat and silent endurance, you'll outlast this winter like all the others. The city continues, so must you. The stone walls radiate heat like a baker's oven long after sunset. Your single ventilation hole, the size of 2 fists, does nothing but funnel in fat blue flies that buzz around your food. The air moves occasionally, usually just to carry the stench of overripe garbage and sun-warmed sewage from the streets below. You sleep on the floor now, the straw mattress discarded as a breeding ground for itchy rashes. Even the thin sheet sticks to your skin like a second epidermis soaked in brine. No amount of washing helps. The public fountains run low by midday, queues stretching into alleys where tempers flare in the heat. When your turn comes, the water dribbles warm into your jug, tasting of the lead pipes it travelled through. Bathing becomes theoretical. You splash your face and armpits if lucky, saving the rest for drinking. The usual coating of grime gets augmented by a permanent sheen of sweat. Your tunic stiffens with salt rings after one wearing. Insects own the insula now. Mosquitoes rise from the streets to feast at dusk. Bedbugs emerge from cracked floorboards to attack in force. You wake with ankles chewed bloody, stomach knotted with the thought of summer fevers. The fish seller's daughter lies shaking 3 doors down, her skin burning, though her parents dunk her in stolen fountain water hourly. Malaria doesn't care about social status, but the wealthy flee to seaside villas while you swelter. Nights become thrashing contests between you and the heat, body searching for cool patches on stone floors that don't exist. Children wail endlessly from heat rash. The widow upstairs moans through another nightmare. Some insular residents drag pallets onto rooftops despite the risk of tumbling off drunk or sleepwalking. Better broken bones than slow suffocation indoors. Food spoils by noon. Your morning bread grows fuzzy green beards before dusk. Meat turns questionable within hours unless drowned in garum. Even onions go soft and weeping in the corner where you store them. The smell of rotting produce mixes with neighbours' chamber pots overflowing into the corridor. Diseases flourish like gardens. The fullers report fist-sized boils from their ammonia vats. The butcher's son vomits blood near the meat counter. Summer diarrhea races through families, turning latrines into biohazards. Wealthy households stock myrrh and vinegar to purify air. You chew mint leaves stolen from a temple offering bowl and hope for the best. Strange economics emerge. Water sellers quadruple prices during droughts. Ice transported from mountain caves sells for its weight in bronze. You glimpse a noble slave carrying a precious block wrapped in straw to some patrician's mid-afternoon wine. Street vendors hawk dubious remedies, vinegar-soaked sponges to hang around necks, clay amulets supposedly cooled by magic, strips of papyrus marked with spells against heatstroke. The public baths grow unbearable. Steam rooms become death traps, tepid pools bath water, warm by morning. Some dunk themselves in the Tiber, despite the sewage and drowning risks. Children loiter near aqueduct outlets catching illegal sips from overflow channels. You learn tricks, wetting your tunic and letting evaporation cool your skin, sleeping with damp rags on your forehead, stuffing lavender stolen from cemetery offerings up your nose to blunt the stench. Tempers shorten like melting candle wicks. Tavern brawls erupt over spilled drinks. A neighbour stabs another in a dispute over hallway space. The vigils patrol less, preferring shaded posts where they extort coin from water vendors instead. Even morning salutios grow perfunctory. Patrons and clients alike dripping sweat onto marble floors, both parties desperate to conclude business before noon heat hits. Somehow, winter nostalgia creeps in. You dream of chapped hands rather than rashes, of huddling for warmth rather than lying limbs apart like a starfish on hot stones. The memory of chilblains seems almost sweet compared to festering fly bites. Your children complain about the cold 6 months ago. Now they whimper for it through cracked lips. The city's rhythm slows to a crawl. Construction halts. Only death doesn't take vacations. Corpse collectors work overtime as the elderly and infants succumb to waves of heat. You count days until the autumn rains, though you know the first storms will bring flooded gutters and new complaints. Survival requires brutal calculus. Is hauling water from the distant fountain worth the sunstroke risk? Does eating questionable meat beat starving? Should you spend coins on a fan or save them for winter fuel? Rome survives these questions summer after summer. You will too, though barely. Ice melts. And still, somehow, through sheer stubbornness and damp cloths on wrists, you endure. The year's hottest day brings a grim discovery up the street. An old man dead in his room, unnoticed until the smell overpowered even summer's usual stench. They'll bury him quickly before noon. Heat makes the corpse burst. You watch the procession pass, then adjust your makeshift sun hat and keep walking. The city demands more living before it lets you rest. Winter seems both impossibly distant and your only hope. The shout comes at midnight, sharp, panicked, unmistakable. Fire in the next insula. You're on your feet before fully awake, grabbing the pre-packed sack, citizenship papers, tools, the clay jar with 7 coins buried in flour. Your sandals stick to the floor, sweat or spilled wine, who can tell? The children wait choking as smoke seeps through cracks in the wall. No alarms sound except human voices. No fire brigade arrives with pumps. Rome's vigiles might show up eventually, to loot, not rescue. Already the bucket chain forms of desperate neighbours passing jugs hand to hand from the fountain. The line stretches 2 blocks, each container spilling half its contents before reaching the flames. The fire leaps across rooftops like a living thing, feeding on laundry lines and oil-soaked beams. Your insula's walls radiate heat from next door's blaze. Falling embers tattoo the street with glowing dots. A woman screams from an upper window. Whether trapped or watching her life burn, you can't tell. The crowd jostles to form escape routes nobody planned. Rich tenants push slaves ahead as human shields. A freedman tosses children over a collapsing balcony into outstretched arms below. No insurance exists except memory. The potter down the street remembers his patterns. He'll remake the bowls if he survives. The wool comber recalls her best clients. You mentally tally tools and debts, calculating what vanishing would cost. Everything rests on this moment's luck. Whether the wind shifts, whether your landlord bothered maintaining the roof tiles that might block sparks. Whole blocks become kindling, arranged by greedy builders. You've watched flames jump 6-foot alleys without slowing. Last year's great fire started in a baker's oven and ate 7 insulae before dawn. They never found the baker's body, just his iron oven door fused to a beam. Wealth flees early. Litters carry patricians' art collections to country villas 2 hours into any blaze. You stand guard with wet rags and prayers. The fish sauce seller swears by urine to douse flames. His corner reeks of desperation and ammonia. A drunk hurls wine at the inferno, creating momentary violet flares. Someone's grandmother sits rocking in the street, clutching a chicken she saved instead of her life savings. The fire exposes Rome's fragile hierarchies. He's shouting for someone, anyone, to save his rare Greek manuscripts. The landlord who ignored rotting beams now wails about property values. You watch slaves from burning insulae collapse from exhaustion while their owners count lost silverware. The city's masks burn away, revealing raw fear beneath. Children understand first. Your daughter asks where you'll sleep tonight before the question occurs to you. Your son stares at the flames reflected in a growing puddle, already imagining the taunts of fire rat. From classmates if you lose everything. You lie through your teeth, we're fine, it won't reach us. The blacksmith abandons the bucket line to salvage his anvil. The baker's wife claws through hot rubble for her sourdough starter jar. You debate, grab the mattress, and risk being a target for thieves. Leave it and face nights on stone floors. Time decides for you. A crash sends sparks swirling toward your window. The choice becomes obvious when survival digs its nails in. Dawn finds half the block smouldering. The fire burned itself out, hitting a bathhouse's marble walls. You count missing faces. The Greek tutor last seen carrying his students to safety. The die maker who ran back for his ledgers. Your insula stands blackened but intact this time. Carpenters swarm like ants, measuring charred beams while proprietors shout orders. Speculators buy fire-damaged properties at criminal rates. The brickmaker doubles his prices. You help sift through a neighbour's debris, tossing broken crockery into piles. They'll rebuild faster than last time. The foundation survived, and Rome never lacks desperate tenants. Someone jokes about the fire cleansing the block of rats. No one laughs. Everyone knows the rats survive everything. The city forgets fires, like men forget fevers. Unpleasant but inevitable. New insulae will rise taller, more crowded, just as flammable. Your children will startle at cooking smells for weeks. You'll eye every oil lamp like a traitor. Next year's summer still threatens drought. The cycle holds. Rome stands on layers of its own ashes. You walk home past blackened walls already sprouting new plaster. The same landlord who ignored fire codes now raises rents for undamaged rooms. The same vigiles who never arrived patrol for looters. The same sun rises over a city that never learns. Your hands shake hours after the danger passes. Not from fear, but the realization someday it will be your insula burning. Your belongings turning to smoke. Your children screaming in the street. This is the unspoken contract of Roman life. You endure until the flames take everything, then start over smiling. The city demands no less. While emperors built temples and senators debated, ordinary people survived collapsing ceilings, communal latrines, and bread harder than tombstone. Their quiet suffering kept the empire running more than any law or legion. Next time your Wi-Fi slows or your shower runs cold, remember the Roman who bathed in lead pipes and slept to the symphony of dripping sewage. History forgets most names, but built its wonders on their backs. If you've survived this journey into ancient urban misery, tell me, what grim chapter should we explore next? Your choice might just be someone else's daily hell.